I'm Jonathan Ashong-Lamptey. This is the Resource Group's podcast. Here's what's coming up on today's show. It's the qualification that makes the difference. It says that you are legitimate, you're okay, you're acceptable, but your ethnic group is not. This occurred when minority ethnic professionals were complimented, but their ethnic group was marginalized. Discrimination is prejudice in action, when people are treated unfairly because of the prejudice. Because the negative stereotypes about the group are not being applied to you as an individual. They think that you are better, not worse than the others. I'm Jonathan Ashong-Lamptey, and welcome to the latest episode of the Resource Group's podcast, where it's my job to explore, discuss, and deconstruct ways to help the people within your workplace reach their potential and drive performance through inclusive practices. In simple terms, this means I'll be drawing from a variety of disciplines, trying to connect the dots in terms of best practices, habits, and other important pieces of information that you can apply in your organization. This is the second of a three-part series exploring subtle forms of discrimination in the workplace. As mentioned in the previous episode, there's a lot of evidence to show that discrimination of all kinds exists in organizations. But it's often hard to identify or intervene because overt forms of discrimination are less frequent in our society thanks to changing attitudes and improved legislation. However, many forms of covert discrimination still remain. Today, I'm going to be talking about a covert form of prejudice that is so subtle that when you observe it, it actually looks like a compliment. In today's show, I discuss several things, including the difference between prejudice and discrimination, how compliments can be used to mask prejudice, how ineffective employee resource groups can fuel harmful stereotypes, and much, much more. If you're finding this for the first time, make sure you check out the show notes to get details of all the reports and all the resources that are discussed in the show by going to resourcegroups.com/podcasts. That's resourcegroups.com/podcasts. That's also where you can get in contact to make any suggestions for the show, recommendations for future episodes, or just to learn more about what we're doing. I look forward to hearing from you and hope you enjoy the show. This is the second of a three-part series exploring subtle forms of discrimination in the workplace. In the previous show, we looked at the normalizing gaze and how anything can be made to look ridiculous when you shine a particular light on it. This becomes a problem when people are expected to qualify or justify a particular behavior associated with their identity. In this show, we look at something more difficult to spot, and to be honest, I think it's more about prejudice than it is about discrimination. What do I mean by that? Well, with prejudice, the clue is in the name, prejudge. In this context, it refers to preconceived notions about people based on their social identity or membership of a particular group. It's what someone thinks. Discrimination is prejudice in action, when people are treated unfairly because of the prejudice. For example, a person may have a prejudice regarding Muslims. It becomes discrimination if and when that person treats Muslims differently because of the prejudice. We all know that this is illegal in the workplace. Here, I want to talk about covert forms of prejudice, and it's related to so-called compliments that a person may receive. This has personally happened to me, and I want you to think about if this has ever happened to you or if you've ever observed this. I want to give you an example that I came across. So we've got an individual who's a top performer in the workplace. He's got a great job at a global company and has always performed well, not only in his job, but at school and at university. Now, at a recent work event, he was told that he was really well read, open-minded, and liberal. He was told, "You're different to the others." Now, this person is Pakistani and Muslim, and he knew what they meant when they said others. It wasn't the first time he'd been complimented in this way. In their research paper, Professor Koen van Leer and Professor Maddie Janssens found that this occurred when minority ethnic professionals were complimented, but their ethnic group was marginalized. As an individual, being told that you're smart, hardworking, or talented will naturally feel like a compliment. Your opinion may change if the compliment is then qualified by a negative remark about a group that you belong to. It's the qualification that makes the difference. It says that you are legitimate, You're okay, you're acceptable, but your ethnic group is not. These particular observations can serve to legitimize you because you're deemed to meet a higher standard that allows you to be accepted. Using the word legitimate in this way implies that you're somehow illegitimate. This isn't a belief held by everyone, but it is for those who say things like, if only more Asians were like you. You're not like the other Nigerians. You speak incredibly well for a Chinese person. It may be difficult to believe, but these are real comments from minority ethnic professionals that I've interviewed in the 21st century. Far from making them feel accepted, they reinforce negative stereotypes associated with their ethnic groups. President Barack Obama is a great example of this. He's characterized as being special, a unique individual. And because of his remarkable path to the White House, he's often placed in a class that separates him from the rest of the African American community that he clearly identifies with. In Obama's case, the accolades help to legitimize him as the President of the United States because he is, as some people say, exceptional considering his background. The point I'm trying to make here is that the prejudice exists because identifying you as a positive exception allows them to reveal their negative opinions about your ethnic group. The discrimination follows if these prejudices move from being thoughts to actions. And this is different from traditional forms of prejudice because the negative stereotypes about the group are not being applied to you as an individual. They think that you are better, not worse than the others. Instead of being empowering, it's the opposite. It can be disempowering because you're being confronted with negative attitudes about your ethnic group. This combination of positive and negative is what makes this form of prejudice so subtle. This is a really ambiguous experience, but the surprised reactions and unnecessary compliments tend to give the game away. Keep this in mind next time this happens to you or if you observe anything like this. So what does this mean for your employee resource groups? Well, one of the most common reasons I hear when I interview people about why they don't want to join employee resource groups is because they're considered to be ineffective. You've heard previous shows where guests talk about flags, food and fun, drinks and nibbles, or wine and wine. Another common reason is that some people don't want to be lumped together with everyone else. They want to distinguish themselves from the other members of their identity group. This matters for your employee resource group because if you don't have a compelling purpose guiding your resource group, and if you're not seen to be pursuing it, then there's a good chance that potential members won't want to get involved. Not only that, given that most negative stereotypes about any identity group in the workplace can often be distilled to a perceived lack of competence, i.e., black people are like this, women are like that, people with disabilities are like this, then having an employee resource group that's perceived to be ineffective can actually fuel these harmful stereotypes. That's one of the reasons why having an effective employee resource group really matters. So let's wrap this up. What are the key messages here? 1. Prejudice and discrimination are not the same thing. 2. Compliments about you may be used to mask prejudice about one of your identity groups. And 3. Ineffective employee resource groups can fuel harmful negative stereotypes in the workplace. So have you ever received one of these double-edged compliments before? Do you often stand out at being different from the others like yourself? Get in touch or leave a comment. I would love to hear from you. To learn more about my work and the resources discussed in the show, check out the show notes by going to resourcegroups.com/podcasts. That's resourcegroups.com/podcasts. If you're finding this for the first time, hit subscribe to make sure that you get all the latest updates and access to other episodes of the show. Make sure you sign up to our newsletter to get on the insider list. We're active on social media. Follow us on Twitter. Our Twitter handle is @resourcegroups. On LinkedIn, we have a page called The Resource Groups Company, and we have a slideshow that summarizes everything that we talked about today. If you've learned something from today's show, please share it with one other person that you think may find it interesting. If you really like the show, please leave us a 5-star review. With your support, we can really take this show to the next level. Thanks for listening, and I will see you in the next episode.